Hello again, everybody. Today we are going to be doing a quick review of evaluating algebraic expressions by hand. You will remember that an algebraic expression is an expression that contains variables, and that to evaluate them we have to find their value. So here's an example. Let's say we have a negative 2y minus 4, and we want to evaluate that if we know that y is equal to a negative 5. Now, to evaluate this, what I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to replace or substitute that negative 5 for that y in that problem, and then work it out. But before we do that, I want you to take a minute to think about what this problem is saying. When I see negative 2y, I know that means negative 2 times y. Now, when you show me multiplication, I always want you to use parentheses. So when you think of negative 2 times y, I want you to think of it written with parentheses. And then we've got our minus 4 over here. Now, what we're going to do right now is we are going to sub that negative 5 for that y. Sub that negative 5 for that y. So that's going to make this a negative, that's going to make this a negative 2 times a negative 5 minus 4. So anytime you see multiplication in one of these problems, I want you to write that multiplication using parentheses. All right, now, to work this out, what we'll do is we'll go back to our old buddy, Gymnast. So first, I look at the problem over here to see if it has any grouping symbols. And it does have parentheses, but there's only one number inside. There's nothing to do inside. So no grouping symbols in that problem. Next, I go looking for exponents. So when I look at negative 2 times negative 5 minus 4, no exponents there, so I don't have to worry about that. Next, I look for multiplying and dividing. Negative 2 times negative 5, right there is multiplying, and then I've got my minus 4. So what I'm going to do is I am going to do the multiplying that I see, negative 2 times negative 5. Now, over here on my Desmos calculator, if I need it, I can type in negative 2 times negative 5. And we'll notice that for that, we get a positive 10. So we're going to replace negative 2 times negative 5 with positive 10, and we have 10 minus 4. 10 minus 4 doesn't have any more multiplying or dividing, so that's done. Adding and subtracting, 10 minus 4 is 6. So 6 is the final answer for this problem. So what we're going to do is we're going to plug the number they give us in for the variable in the problem, but before you do that, I want you to take a minute to think about what that problem is saying. Okay, and if you see multiplying like negative 2 times y, I want you to write that multiplication with parentheses. Okay, here's another problem. Let's do 4x squared plus 1, and we're going to evaluate that if we know that x is equal to a negative 2. Now again, I know I'm going to sub in that negative 2 for that x in that problem, but before I do, I want to take a minute to think about this problem. When I see 4x squared, that means 4 times x squared. So I want to show that multiplication with a set of parentheses. And I want you to notice what I did here. This was 4 times x squared, so I'm going to use parentheses to show that. But I want you to notice where I put that exponent. I put that exponent on the outside of those parentheses. So this is how I need you to think of that problem. Now we can sub in negative 2 where we see that x. So we're going to have 4 times negative 2 squared plus 1. Now, this is the point where we'll use GEMDAS. So does this problem have grouping symbols? Well, it has parentheses, but there's only one number inside of them. There's nothing to do in there, so no grouping symbols. Does it have exponents? Sure it does. I need to do a -2 to the second power. Now, I want to show you something on the calculator here. If I do -2, like this, and then I hit my a squared button, then you'll notice I get -4 as my answer. So when I do -2 squared with no parentheses, I get -4 as the answer. Now I want to type it in like I have it written over here. So I want to do parentheses, -2, close parentheses, and then hit my a squared button. You'll notice this time I get +4 as the answer. Now both of those can't be right. Here's what you need to understand. The -2 squared with parentheses is the one that's correct. So this one right here is correct. This one is wrong, so I'm going to delete that. Now, let me tell you why that's wrong. When you see toolbar back over here. When you see, whoops, when you see -2 squared, you all know that means -2 times -2. I'm out of room there. But you all know that means, let me back up and see if I can do better with that. When you all see -2 squared, you know that means -2 times -2. So if I come over here again to my calculator and I type in -2 times -2, you'll notice it gives me +4. So here is what I wanted to show you with this problem. When you type this exponent into your calculator, you have got to use those parentheses or you will get the wrong answer. All right? So -2 squared, we got +4, so this is going to become 4 times 4 plus 1. Now, no more exponents in that expression, so next up I would look for multiplying or dividing. Well, I have 4 times 4 plus 1, so I see this multiplying right here. So 4 times 4, whoops, we get 16 for that. So this is going to be 16 plus 1. And then that's just a simple addition. 16 plus 1 is 17, so 17 is the answer. So I want you all to take a minute when they give you this problem to think about what it's asking you to do before you sub the number in. And if you see multiplying like 4 times x squared, I want that shown with multiplication, or with parentheses, I mean. Okay, next up. Let's evaluate 3xy minus 10 if we know that x is -5 and y is -4. So we're going to sub -5 for that x, sub -4 for that y. Before we do that, I want you, though, to take a minute to think about this 3xy and what that means. That says 3 times x times y. 3 times x times y. So I want you to show 3 times x times y by using parentheses to show that multiplication for both variables. Now we can sub in. So we're going to sub in a -5 where that x is. So that's going to be 3 times -5, sub a -4 where that y is, times a -4 minus 10. Now we have just a basic problem. Let's use GEMDAS to evaluate that. So does it have grouping symbols? Well, it's got 2 sets of parentheses, but there's only one number inside of each set, so no grouping symbols. Does 3 times -5 times -4 minus 10 have exponents? And the answer to that is no. So we're up to multiplying and dividing, and it has plenty of multiplying to do. So we're going to do 3 times negative 5 times negative 4. So coming over here to my calculator, I'm going to do 3 times negative 5 times negative 4. And you'll notice that that gives me a positive 60. So I've got 60 minus 10, and then 60 minus 10 is 50. So right here is where I want you to spend some time before you work one of these problems. I want you to take a moment to plan a little bit and see if you're going to need those parentheses. Okay, next up, 3x squared minus 4x plus 7. And we're going to evaluate that if we know that x is equal to a negative 3. So we're going to sub negative 3 in for both of the x's that we see in that problem. Before we do that, though, let's take a minute to do some planning. 3x squared means 3 times x squared. So I want to show that with parentheses. So 3 times x squared. Remember that exponent needs to go outside. And then we have minus 4x. That's minus 4 times x. So right here we have multiplying again. So I want you to show that by putting that x in parentheses. So minus 4 times x. And then plus 7. And now we can do the subbing. So you're going to do 3 times negative 3 squared minus 4 times negative 3 plus 7. And remember right here with this negative 3 squared, that the parentheses made a difference for us. We want to do negative 3 times negative 3. So keep that in mind as we're doing this here. All right, so now let's work this out. Do we have grouping symbols? We have parentheses, but just one number inside, so no grouping. Do we have an exponent? And the answer is yes. We want to do negative 3 squared. So remember, type that in over here by putting parentheses, and then negative 3, and close the parentheses, and then hit that a squared button. So notice that's a positive 9. Remember that negative 3 squared means negative 3 times negative 3. So it's got to be positive 9, not negative. All right? So this is going to become 3 times 9 minus 4 times negative 3 plus 7. All right, exponents done. So now we're on to multiplying and dividing. And there's only multiplying in this problem, so we're going to work left to right. So first we have 3 times 9. 3 times 9 is 27. Then we have minus 4 times negative 3. Now be sure we get these sign numbers right. So I'm going to type in over here 4 times negative 3. And you'll notice that is a negative 12. So when I write that down over here, I'm going to put that negative 12 in parentheses because it's minus a negative 12. And I don't want to lose one of those signs. And so now we're down to the end. We have subtracting and adding. Remember that we work in order from left to right, so 27 minus negative 12 is first. So we'll do that first. 27 minus negative 12 is 39. I'm going to finish that up over here. So that's going to be 39 plus 7. And if I do 39 plus 7, then I end up with 46. So again here, I can't stress this enough. Right here is where I want you to spend a good bit of time. If you see multiplications or you see exponents, then I need you inserting those parentheses because that's going to make all the difference in the world. All right, one last problem. We're going to do a squared plus b times a minus c. And we're going to make a negative 4, and b 7, and c 3. Now, again, let's look at our expression and do some planning before we start subbing these numbers in. The first thing I see is I'm doing a squared. A squared. And you know, I've seen already that with that exponent that it makes a difference. So just for example, just to kind of stress this again. If I come over here and I do negative 4 squared, without parentheses, I'm going to get negative 16. And if I do negative 4 squared with parentheses, I'm going to get a positive 16. I want to square a, so I want to square negative 4. So right here is what I want. I want those parentheses. So I'm going to come over here, and when I see a squared, I know that that a is going to have to go in parentheses. Plus b times a minus c. Now we talked about this. When you see multiplication like you do here, b times a minus c, I want parentheses in there, but you'll notice it's already there. So b times, the parentheses are already in the problem. I don't need to add them. And then a minus c, subtracting is not such a big deal. I don't need to add any parentheses there. So here's the moral of the story. You need to add parentheses when there's an exponent and when there's multiplication. Those are the times that parentheses need to be added. All right, so let's sub in. We're going to sub in a negative 4 for this a. That's going to be negative 4 squared, plus, for b, we're going to sub in a 7. For a negative 4, and for c, 3. All right, now in this problem, first we look for grouping symbols. We have parentheses, and this time there is more than one number inside. There is something to do. So the first thing we want to do on this problem is negative 4 minus 3. So let's go ahead and do that over here. Negative 4 minus 3, and it appears that that is a negative 7. So we're going to get negative 4 squared plus 7 times negative 7. I'm about out of room here, so I'm going to come over here and copy that down again, and let's keep going from there. So we have negative 4 squared plus 7 times a negative 7. Now, next up, we would do exponents. So we want to do negative 4 squared, which is right here. We've already done that. That's a positive 16 plus 7 times negative 7. After the exponent, we would look for multiplying and dividing, which I see right here, 7 times negative 7. So I'm going to do 7 times negative 7. That is a negative 49. So this is going to be 16 plus negative 49. And then the only thing left to do is to add those together. So 16 plus a negative 49. And I get a negative 33. That's my answer. So, before I leave you to do the problems, I want to remind you here. If I see 3x, that's 3 times x, I want you to show that as 3 parentheses x. So, examine the problem. If there's multiplication, this is how I want you to show it right here. This is how I want that multiplication shown, okay? If you see x squared, we've seen that parentheses make a difference in that answer. So when you see x squared, I want that x in parentheses with an exponent outside. So these are the 2 cases that I talked to you about last week where you have to add parentheses into your problem. If you have any questions at all, let me know. Do a good job on today's assignment, and if I see any issues, I'll be in touch. Thanks a bunch.